Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is chew. Let's take a look at some of the definitions. The first way this verb chew is used is to mean to bite and work food in your mouth using your teeth, generally to make the food into smaller pieces so that you can swallow it. A second way this verb gets used is to mean to gnaw at something continuously. That word gnaw might be a little new or different for you. You'll notice I'm not pronouncing the G with it, but it's another word that's similar to bite. But what's different with this second meaning is that the action is not being done to break something apart, but again, just that repeated action or motion. So if you're familiar with gum, right, this is that second definition, right? We're not trying to break it into smaller pieces or really consume it necessarily, right? We're just going to repeat this action of chewing. Chew is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we need to do is add ing to make chewing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are formed by adding ed. And because this verb ends in a vowel sound, oo, the ed is going to make a d sound. Chewed, chewed. Let's take a look at some phrasal verbs next. One phrasal verb you might hear is to chew off. And this does mean to remove something by biting. Here's an example sentence. The deer chewed off the flowers. So they've removed the colorful part, right? The petals, etc. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to chew on something. And this can have two very different meanings. The first is to bite on an object. Generally, this is used with things that aren't food. So we might see this phrasal verb chew on used with animals or perhaps really small children, right, who are still kind of figuring out what goes in their mouth and what doesn't. Here's an example sentence. The toddler chews on her toys. The second meaning for chew on something is to think about something, right? So let's take a look at an example sentence. The teacher chewed on the question for a minute before answering, right? So you have to kind of imagine this is not a literal, right? So the teacher in this sentence, that person's mouth is not moving, but their brain is hard at work thinking about this particular question that's been asked. Another phrasal verb you might hear is chew out, and it means to yell or criticize in an angry way. Here's an example sentence. The coach will chew out the players if they make a lot of mistakes. The last phrasal verb we'll look at today is chew up, and it means to destroy something by chewing it. Here's an example. The puppy has chewed up many pairs of shoes. Let's continue practicing using this verb chew, and today we'll do some practice in the simple past tense, the simple present, and the simple future. Let's start with the simple past tense. Here, we're going to use the ed form of the verb in the affirmative. And it's going to remain chewed no matter if my subject is singular or plural. Here's an example sentence. The baseball players chewed on sunflower seeds. If I want to make a negative sentence in simple past tense, I'm going to use did not and then the base verb. You might hear native speakers use the contraction form didn't and then the base verb. Here's an example sentence. She didn't chew her food well and nearly choked. If I want to make a yes or no question, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Did your boss chew you out? Next, let's look at simple present. For this verb tense, I'm describing habits, routines, and facts. In the affirmative, if my subject is I, you, we, or they, then my verb is just the base verb, no change in spelling. If my subject is he, she, or it, then I want to add an S to the verb. Let's take a look at an affirmative example. Every summer, beetles chew on my raspberry plants. If I had just been talking about one beetle, right, then I would have used chews. In the negative, to form negative simple present, I'm going to use do not in the base verb or does not in the base verb. Here's an example. She doesn't chew sugar-free gum. If I want to make a question in the simple present, I'm going to start with do or does, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Here's an example. Do your pets chew your furniture? In the simple future, today we'll practice using will. So the nice thing about using will in the future is that will stay the same no matter what the subject is, singular or plural, and then what comes after is always the base verb. So let's take a look at an example. Mice will chew through those wires. Perhaps we're talking about something that's in a garage or a barn, something outdoors. If I want to make a negative sentence in the simple future using will, I'm going to use will not and then the base verb. You might hear native speakers use the contraction won't. Here's an example. The dog won't chew on that toy. Finally, if I want to make a question in the simple future, I'll start with will, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Will animals chew on that plant? Next, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb chew. Today we're going to look mainly at adjectives here. The first adjective is chewable, and it means able to be chewed. Right? We can kind of see that in both parts of the word there. You might hear this adjective used to describe medication, particularly when it's meant for small children who might not be able to swallow a whole pill all by themselves. Here's another example. The vitamins are chewable. Again, really common if the vitamins are meant for children. Another adjective is chewy, and it means that something needs to be chewed a lot or chewed for a long period of time. Here's an example sentence. The steak was chewy. And I'm going to point out this is not a compliment, right? So if you describe it that way, generally, for most people, they're not enjoying it. They don't want to be repeating that action of chewing in order to take just a single bite. And the last adjective I'll leave you with today is unchewed, and you might recognize that prefix un meaning not. So, not surprising that this adjective means something is not chewed. Here's an example of a sentence. That piece of gum is unchewed. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.